Good afternoon, everyone. Come on, let me see how everyone's doing in there. Come on, who's down in here? Don't be shy. That little charade of music, of probably some of your favorite music that was just ruined, was brought to you by Jonathan Young, the most famous Disney villain on YouTube as of right now. Go ahead, check out his channel. He just might turn into a slice of pizza for you. You never know. That guy is more random than, well, 16-year-old high school teenager. That's how random he is right now. So, as of today, this is a new show that has started up on the channel, known as Smite Weekend Review. Whole point of this little stream, it's going to run on for 2 hours. It's going to go over current meta shifts, any current tips and tricks that could be shared, any notes that have been taken, any past things that have been noticed throughout the week will be brought up here, and many tier lists will be made like every other week, more than likely. You know, you're going to see a lot of different things going on here. This mostly started up because of the recent mid-season update, patch 3.12, that everyone is geeking the hun about, because we don't know exactly what to do. And more or less, to summarize this whole 2 hours, we're going to start seeing a shift back into Season 2 temporarily, but I am expecting to see an expansion from Season 2. So it just all depends on a variety of different variables that I'm just not aware of just yet. Once the client goes live, we'll start seeing some things go on. So this week is going to be this Saturday is going to be a few predictions going on for the following week, and then once the patch goes live next Saturday, we will actually talk over the actual meta shift and what we're going to be looking forward to here soon. Before we get started on all this, I just want to make a short update that the streaming schedules on this channel has indeed changed. Originally it started off as noon to 7 every weekday for normal streaming, but now after a little bit of changes, we went ahead and have that updated. I'm going to go ahead and pull that schedule up here for you, just in case you can't see it below. This is the current stream schedule as of right now. So we're going to be streaming Smite every weekday, noon to 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, and then every Saturday from 3 to 5 Central Standard Time, we're going to be having Smite in Review. Oh, that still says Smite in Review. Smite Weekend Update. That one still says Smite in Review. That was the old name. Wow, I really have not been keeping up to date on my graphics. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started on this, and we're going to go through a little brief summary of what we're going to be talking about today. So, for starters, we're going to start off this stream with just a little bit of a light overview of the patch. I already went into a lot of detail. I believe it was Friday. It was either Thursday or Friday. I went into a lot of detail going over the patch, doing some early ahead predictions, and things like that. Just overall talking over and overviewing the patch, and we're going to go back over, just kind of refresh ourselves of the huge things that has changed in this patch. Once that is done, we're going to do some very basic theory crafting, very basic and very general math. They're not going to be as detailed because of the fact that I don't know what the patch is going to be, what's going to happen, like once a patch goes live, because things are always subject to change between PTS and live. So there's a lot of things that could change. For example, I say we could be shifting back into Season 2 for a little bit, but when we go live, for all I know, the items have been changed, or some type of change has taken place, or players have simply moved away from what I predicted them to be doing, and now they're moving on to something else for something completely random. For example, Bluestone Boot Start, which goes back to beta to Season 1. So we're just going to talk a little bit about just a generic theory crafting. I will go in a lot more detail into theory crafting as well as the processes of theory crafting later on. Once that is done, we're going to review the pre-3.12 tier list that I made. As I've noticed, the tier list is flawed very majorly, but that is because it's just a generic tier list I want to get an idea off of, something I can have spinning around in my brain for the next couple of days so I can run through these matchups in my head. We're going to review that once we go back over the theory crafting and all that, and we're going to begin creating the new 312 tier list. Once this is done, I'm going to go back over into the chat, and we're going to go over some generic things, some generic questions that may have popped up recently. You know, questions always pop up. Any suggestions? If you think that something should be moved around the tier list, that would be a good time to mention it. Because that's the point where I'm going to be purposely reading the chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to be streamlining through these next 2 hours, getting through the lesson, and getting everything done within a timely manner, so that way we can all get out of here and go home. So, without further ado, well, maybe with further ado, not that browser. I want this one. Yes, give me this one, please. So without further ado, we're going to go back over just generic stuff over 312. Just look at all the important stuff. Erlang Sheng, for example, I feel is not important right now. All we know is that he's going to be basically like Nemesis was when she was first released. A very heavy basic attack based solo laner that may be some players will start using as a jungler later on. Other than that, nothing real important about him. Start out. Thorns. We know that Thorns is Shield of the Underworld. It's now coming back. Slight tweaks to it, but overall it is generically the same item, you know? So this is going to put Hades back up into the upper tier, so we got to keep this in mind when we start doing the tier list, that Hades will start to shift back into the upper tiers, and it will just take some time to kind of, even when I put him too high, I think I'll put him too high, so it'll probably be next Saturday when I'm going to kind of put him in a more comfortable place, because he's the one who benefits from this most, next to a couple of the other high, Zhang Kui, for example, could benefit from this greatly. Phantom, another one of those items, but thinking about it over the past few days, Phantom is mostly going to be used by the hunters that are now out of the meta because of the absence of Golden Bow. Most of the hunters that would use this, that don't have escapes, that would definitely use Phantom, are mostly gods that don't clear as easily, so they end up needing Golden Bow. Artemis is a prime example. Artemis is still very good, but a lot of people found that she's more effective if you level her to her steroid. And that's what Golden Bow was really good for, was gods that had no clear other than a steroid. And I'm going to come back to that later on, it's going to come a full circle. But Phantom's just going to be in an interesting place because it's mostly going to be used by the hunters that would have used that before, or gods that don't have a surefire way to escape, but most of them have fallen out of favor by now. Blink just means you can't chase people as much as you could. Curse, we're still starting to see like the battle of balance between Curse and Sprint. That's still going on. As to whether or not people are going to pick up Curse a lot more or Sprint a lot more, I can't quite answer that. But it is definitely in the looks of. But I think it was, yes, Ritual Dagger. We're going to see, with the introduction of Ritual Dagger, these two relics be more at war with each other. Who's going to pick up the Curse for the longer slow and anti-heal, or who's going to pick up the Sprint for the extra time to escape? And I talked about this previously, but Shell is also going to be a huge factor with Ritual Dagger, because as an example I gave previously, if you get walled in by an Odin, you're going to be stuck in that ring for 4 seconds, and Shell lasts 5 seconds. So you could Shell in the middle of the ring, but now you don't have follow-up. If someone has a Ritual Dagger and they use Shell, not only do you have the Shell during the ringing, during the team fight that the Odin ring was placed, but you also have it for any follow-up for an extra 6 seconds. So it's definitely a good tool to have in situations like that. Frenzy, not really much about this item. Scout, not so much. Sprint, just talked about it. Sunder is definitely going to be an item instead of like Meditation and possibly Teleport in Duel. Sunder is definitely going to be picked up a lot more, mostly to counter any more ADCs appearing in Duel. But now that Golden Bow is removed from the game, Hunters are going to slowly be phased out of Duel. And as Incon said, I believe it was either yesterday or the day before, but he said once the Hunters start moving out, he can go in with his Athena and do stuff. And that's definitely what you can do with Duel. Athena is a very strong dueling god right now, was until Golden Bow became a huge thing for Hunters. Since then, Duel became strictly Hunters. But now that any remaining Hunters will be phased out with the use of Sunder, now that it has the increased reduction and also has the attack speed reduction on the Sunder target. That's going to be incredibly potent against Hunters. Teleport, it's just you're going to have to play smarter with Teleport. That's the overall idea of this patch, is you're going to have to play smarter. Wrath, not much to say about there other than you can use it a little more effectively. Ritual Dagger we just talked about. Emperor's Armor, we're going to talk about this in the theory crafting section. Adventure Blade, nothing to talk about. Ansel is definitely an item we should talk about. Not quite have to, but definitely should. Bancroft's Talent, I keep reading that as Executioner because they screwed up, but Bancroft's Talent we're also going to be talking about. That's going to shift the tier list a lot as of right now. Golden Bow and Throwing Dagger, we just talked about this. That's going to shift the tier list as well. So gods like Jingwei, who were originally S tier, or I ranked them as S plus if I remember correctly. Oop, that's the wrong tier list. Okay, yeah, I ranked her as S plus because she had that high clear, the high mobility, and she had that passive that allowed her to sustain a lot longer. But she only benefited from having an insane amount of clear. Now with Golden Bow out of the game, she's going to see some punishment. Doesn't mean she's a bad god. She's just going to see a little bit of lack of respect, really. Heartseeker, nothing really to talk about. This item's not going to affect much. Runeforge is definitely going to bring a lot of gods that are AoE slows, AoE controls. That Runeforge is definitely going to benefit these gods a lot more and bring them up. Spectral Armor, don't need to talk about. Genji's Guard, no need. Amazenkab, Anubis, we'll talk to him when we get to Bancroft's Talon. Ao Kuang, not much. He's still a little bit under control, but the nerf on the Wildstorm will kind of adjust him a little bit, but not by too much because it's mostly for his scaling. Like his scaling with his items. Arachne will also see a little bit of change in her placement because now she's no longer the strategic placer. She is now the I don't know what to call it, but she basically doesn't place temporary wards pretty much, because keep in mind when you walk through Arachne's web, she is made aware of it with a ward ping. So she's no longer that kind of strategic placer. She has to play a little bit more smarter with her web based on her location. Aphrodite, one moment. Ugh. Depending on a lot of different things, Aphrodite support can still be possible. However, this does not mean that healers are coming back, and we're going to talk about this. But I'll talk more in detail about the theory crafting. Chang'e, same thing. Fafnir, it just makes his dragon form a lot more potent, so no problem there. Guan Yu, more utility, so he's going to be adjusted a lot more. Hel, a little more utility, a lot more potential in the solo lane as a poker like Chaac, but we'll just kind of see how she rides it out. Naja, once again, has to play a little bit smarter with his passive. Odin, a lot of people that I've talked to said this is OP. I still think he's perfectly under control. He just has a little bit more options given to him as of right now. Raijin, no need to talk about him. Ratatoskr, because of this, we're probably not going to see him in the solo lane, but I probably wouldn't put it past it. It's kind of like Rom is now shifted out of the meta, but as I said, so long as Zapman is playing Smite, Rom will still be in the meta. People will still want to play Rom. Ooh, don't hit the mic. Ratatoskr solo was first introduced by Divios when he did it during I want to say it was like midway into the spring split. When he brought it out, people started replicating it. It was just like Panda Cat's Blink Artemis. People started replicating that, and that's when we started seeing this. It was kind of like at the beginning of the season, no one knew about Golden Bow, and then when a couple of players pointed out how strong it was right then and how it shifted the meta, everyone just went Golden Bow, and hence what brought us to this situation. Sylvanas, glad to see him back, because you see, I ranked him down at the bottom because he, out of all the other Guardians, he has the least amount of utility, and actually for a time there, he was ranked 76 out of 76 gods. So, whether he's going to be in the top gods, I do not think so. We're just going to see how he rides it out. And no need to talk about Vamana and Vulcan. He's Torbjorn, pretty much, except he doesn't buff his turrets. That would be way too strong. So that's just generally it. You know, there's a lot of things that happened in this patch, but in all honesty, most of it comes down to having to play smarter. You can't just play, you can't play like Season 1 Smite, where you just did pretty much whatever you wanted. You have to play just a little bit smarter. You have to be a little more understanding, a little more calculating of what you do. So then, we're going to come to the theory crafting now. So, I'm going to shift myself into the game, into Smite. There we go. I completely forgot studio mode is a thing. So, I'm not going to be playing any games or anything. We're just going to be looking through the god builders and kind of putting through what we're going to be having. This is live, so keep in mind this is a live version, so that way I have fixed numbers to work with. Other than that, I'm not going to use the PTS because, as I said, things are always subject to change. So we're going to focus on the physical gods. So hunters are affected the most, and Amazenkov was one of those gods that I ranked highest. Right? Yes, he was S+ because he benefited so much from the Golden Bow passive, from the Golden Bow power and the crit, and his dot damage on top of it. So not only did he have AoE basic attacks, but he also had a dot damage clear. It was kind of like combining the Golden Bow passive with a Khepri. Khepri was just too strong because he can tenderize the minions, so the Golden Bow passive cleans them up, allowing more effective clear, basically becoming so aggressive in the lane because of that. So, with talking over a few things, we're going to see one of 3 different things, and it more depends on the hunters, and depending on what hunter goes this, depends on their rank. So, a lot of people brought up that we're going to see a lot of the Season 2 meta where we're going into the rushing lifesteal tree. So, we're either going to see Cursed Gauntlet or Bound Gauntlet. This can go either way. Here's how I basically put it. If you're playing a god that can farm easily, but doesn't that basically can farm easily, but doesn't have a steroid. So we're talking gods like Neith, who have incredibly strong clearing potential and can pretty much clear with any guardian and be perfectly fine. Then you would start off with Cursed Gauntlet. It's a lot of gold, because keep in mind, you don't have enough gold for potions. So often your support will be taking the brunt of the hit and more likely will pick up meditation. Then you build into Devourer's Gauntlet, which is only an extra 600 plus 600 some odd gold. I think around in the 600 gold range actually. I'm just doing all the math lazily. But you build into that because, you know, getting that 400 gold, that happens after if you clear the back camps, then you do your normal camps as usual, you've already generated that gold. And you can pretty much finish this and go straight into your boots the next time you return to base. Even if you die, you would still have enough gold to finish off Devourer's Gauntlet. And that gives you a lot more potential against your hunter, but this also means that they also haven't either, 1, gone down this tree, or number 2, haven't finished Cursed Gauntlet. So they didn't take that time to return to base. So now when you return to lane, you actually have 5 power ahead of them, and you're building the stacks faster. So this is what we're going to see out of gods that can clear super easily, may have some forms of escapes, and don't have a steroid, because they can benefit from this so much more. If you are a god that can clear easily, that that has no mana issues and has a steroid, then you instead go with Bound Gauntlet. Bound Gauntlet will be is actually cheaper, so you do get the potions out of it, so you can play a little bit safer, and you get into Soul Eater. Think about all the gods that can clear easily and have a steroid, but don't have a lot of mana issues. Think about them. A lot of them are a lot of the boxers. So we're talking about Jingwei, we're talking about Artemis, we're talking about gods like those, for the hunter position at least. So a lot of these gods are going to go this route, because they could use they can spare the little extra mana that they have, so they don't need to go the power. They have power built into them. Xbalanque is actually a good example, because as long as you go aggressive on him and get the stacks, you pretty much can skip this tree entirely. You can skip Cursed Gauntlet and go for Bound Gauntlet, and now you get your boxing item. Let's go back over Soul Eater's passive. Killing an enemy eats their soul, granting 0.5% lifesteal and 0.5% movement speed with a max of 20 stacks. So I actually need to get the calculator out for me. So that's going to give you 10 lifesteal and 10 movement speed. Doesn't seem like much, especially on top of the 20 lifesteal and 30 attack speed. So 20 lifesteal, you get an extra 10%, so that's 30 lifesteal. Okay, that's all good and all, but compare it to Devourer's Gauntlet. So we're going to get 20%, 0.20% physical lifesteal per stack with a max of 75 stacks. So we're going to do 0.2 times 75, so that's 15% lifesteal. So we're going to have 25% lifesteal. At full stacks, Soul Eater gives 5% more lifesteal. It's a very small amount, but considering that Soul Eater is the cheapest one to build into its tier 2 and sustain with, and is cheaper than the tier 3 by 50 gold, compared to Devourer's Gauntlet, that 5% lifesteal can add up, especially the way that the stacks work. Devourer's Gauntlet only gives you that 25% lifesteal. However, Soul Eater is very much like Asi, where you hit below the threshold of health, you get extra lifesteal. This is where the second part of the passive comes in. If you take damage below 25% health, all stacks are consumed, restoring 1.5% your maximum health per stack. For hunters, very early on, this can be very beneficial. Later on, not quite, but about that point, you're going to have your crit items. Those couple of crits can mean a lot. So let's say, for example, you get critted down by like 500 or so. So you now have less health, but you also drop below that 25% threshold. So now you get to stay in the fight just a little bit longer. And you can probably deal out some crits as well, especially if you have something like a Rage and you haven't been hitting crits for a while, you can hit like a truck with that. So Soul Eater is definitely something we're going to see mostly on the gods that have steroids, because they can skip the power and go straight for the attack speed and the lifesteal, and actually end up being more of a boxer, especially with the steroid, because they can start using that in a boxing match and they have more power than you expected. The only other exception to this rule we're going to see is the typical Charge Morningstar start. Now, this shouldn't come as a surprise. These are going to be those who either don't have early clear or don't have a steroid. So you're going to see a lot of the sustaining gods use things like this. A lot of people point out to me that Khepri can benefit from Transcendence. I personally think otherwise, because of the fact that he gets mana every time anytime his hearts are picked up. And when all of them are picked up, he gains an extra mana boost. So he has the mana to sustain in lane so long as he can use the hearts. It's almost like a mana refund. So it's kind of on a interesting level to see how it works. Oh, I just realized this is still on. This was not supposed to be on. I'm glad I keep touching myself. This is not a time to donate, so just take that off. But we're going to see this start a lot more. The only problem is the fact that Soul Eater and Devourer's Gauntlet are very easy and very cheap to build into. As I said, if you have Cursed Gauntlet and you clear the first 3 camps, you don't even have to clear a wave and you have the gold you need to finish the item. While Transcendence requires 1400 extra gold. Granted, when you pay that 1400 gold, the item is very much worth it, but trying to get there is very difficult, especially with Golden Bow out of the meta, so farming has become a lot more difficult. So this is all going to benefit a lot of gods that can hyper clear but don't have a steroid, or don't have a clear but have a support that can clear for them. Khepri is, as I said, is a constant example, or Xing Chen. They have a lot of dot damage that can tenderize the minions and make life easier for the hunter who can't really farm. So this is what we're going to see out of the hunters for their starts. When it comes to boots, they're still going to do that, and then from there we're going to see the third item is definitely going to see a lot of different change. The traditional first 3 items for Season 3 with Golden Bow was Golden Bow, Warrior Tabi, and Soul Eater. But But now with that out of the way, so you see boots, we're going to get a lot more power spike from this. So this is for those guys that don't have a steroid. This is where they're going to get their power, or if they, with the 25 power from Devourer's Gauntlet, they bring this over to the 40% power from the Warrior Tab. That's 65 power compared to the 40 power of the other hunter. However, that hunter does have a steroid for more physical power if they're going to be building into Soul Eater. So bear that in mind. And if it's Transcendence, well, Transcendence are probably going to get outmatched either way, but just keep in mind that Transcendence is 1 item. You get this from 2 items, 2 relatively cheap items, might I add. So we're going to see a lot of Warrior Tabi. Ninja Tabi, I really don't think we're going to see appearing a lot in this meta, unless on something like an Artemis, the usual stuff. But Warrior Tabi is definitely going to be the staple. Reinforced Greaves and Talaria Boots we know don't ever go on hunters. From there, the third item is going to be a huge change depending on the route you went, as I just said. So if you went Devourer's Gauntlet, often, more than likely, you're going to pick up Executioner. And we're going to pull this up. So Executioner gives more power with your non-steroid self, gives you attack speed that you missed out on because you didn't give Soul Eater, and allows you to reduce protections. This is very good for boxing someone that has a steroid against you. So if someone did go the Soul Eater route, this is your way of kind of countering them to make sure that you can stay on the same level, even though they can you guys will be on the same level. Next thing you know, you're noodle arming, while they, not so much. So bear in mind this when you're starting to get to this point. If you went the Soul Eater route, then you're going to be missing out on a lot of power. And what will help you out the most in the long run, from what I can tell, is starting some type of power or penetration. Now, Jotun's, in my experience, works well on a lot of different hunters, but only if they're super mana hungry. So if you do have a steroid you can buff a lot, like an Artemis, I wouldn't recommend it on Artemis per se. But if you do have a steroid that you pretty much can't go without, Jotun's Wrath might be the way to go for right now. Other than that, you go over to Titan's Bane. Titan's Bane is definitely going to help you a lot, get the more out of your steroid, allow you to punch harder, punch faster. So you're going to be outboxing if you are that steroid-based hunter that started Soul Eater. If you went Transcendence, you're going to be going Transcendence boots into Soul Eater. That's pretty much the best route you can go. You have the power from the Transcendence and the Warrior Tabi. You just need the lifesteal. And you're building this lifesteal incredibly late, so you can't do this route against hunters that have that lifesteal route against you. So be very careful when you're starting to get to this point. From there, we're not going to see much deviation. A lot of the hunters that picked up Executioner are now going to pick Shinsai's, and they're probably going to pick up something like a Hastened and a Deathbringer. The usual route, the usual finishing up route. The ones that didn't go Executioner will eventually get to Executioner by that point, and then Shinsai's, and then Deathbringer. Skipping the Hastened, regrettably, but a lot of the gods that went that route often don't need it. They have enough attack speed already, and they have enough control and enough setup for them. So that's how the hunters are going to be looking at right now. It's very much going to be shifting back to Season 2. It's just, it's a matter of, we'll just see whether these items are going to be touched as well, or what type of hunters people are going to be playing as now. So now we're going to move on to the warriors, since we are here. Since we are already on a physical god. The warriors are not going to be changing much, but here's one thing that everyone has brought up to me. What about Emperor? What about Emperors? What is Emperors? I cannot remember the name. Let me find it. Emperor's armor. I was trying to think like Emperor's breastplate. No, that's not right. Emperor's armor is going to be a very intriguing item. It's very much could be a warrior item or it could be a guardian item. However, I would not expect the warriors to pick this item up. For the longest time, it has been bluestone into boots, into breastplate of valor, into Jotuns, so that way they can start boxing each other a little more effectively, and they get the mana and the cooldown so they can sustain a little bit longer and start punching a little bit more. As to getting Emperor's armor, as you can see, it's pretty expensive for the type of item it is, but it's cheaper than breastplate of valor. Gives a little bit of health, which is more than breastplate of valor can do, and some physical protection. Because of that, this is expected to go into the sovereignty tree. The aura is definitely helpful in the solo lane. However, it does come with its downside. It gives no mana and no cooldown reduction, which is going to make life all the much more difficult for warriors who need that mana and that cooldown reduction. So this is going to be a case-by-case basis in the solo lane. However, I expect a lot of solo laners to still pick up the breastplate into the Jotuns, simply because it's just been so good. If they pick up Emperor's armor, it might be a mid to late game item. Right after they finish breastplate, or right after they finish bulwark and start working on their health, instead of going to something like Hive the Urchin, they might start looking into Emperor's armor. It's just a matter of time. Whether Guardians will pick this item up first, actually I want to get the numbers off something real quick. Off Hive the Urchin. So Hive the Urchin and Emperor's armor are on the same level. Emperor's armor is cheaper, however Hive of the Urchin does give a lot more overall protections. It gives mana, and it stacks for every assist. So Guardians are going to benefit. A lot of the wider range Guardians are actually going to benefit from this a lot more. Things like Khepri, all Khepri has to do is drop his dot damage and have someone clean up, and he has an assist, and he gets a stack. So this is going to benefit a lot more. However, I think Emperor's armor is going to come into the fact that if it's a Guardian, that doesn't go the gold route. So he doesn't get Watcher's Gift, or he gets Watcher's Gift, but it's not enough gold, and he can't get into Talaria boots because he doesn't benefit from the passive. The fact that he's not a wide-ranged Guardian. None of his abilities are going to really hit one or multiple gods every single proc of that passive. Then Emperor's armor is the cheaper and efficient way to go. It's kind of the playing from behind kind of ordeal. The Guardian just has to bear in mind that there is no magical protections. However, I would not be surprised if when the client goes live that it could have physical protection, or we could have magical protections added onto Emperor's armor. However, judging from the fact that nothing in the sovereignty gives two types of protections, only one, I'm willing to bet that it's going to stay there and without the magical protections. If it does get it, it's probably a couple patches in the future. But this is definitely going to be a playing from behind item. You can't finish Hive the Urchin. Sadly, you're going to have to sell it and go something cheaper. Ansal. So we're going to look at Ansal's current passive. I'm not playing right now. Not playing. So we're going to look at it right now. So you gain 0.5 physical power for every 1% of missing health. If that passive sounds incredibly familiar, that's because it's super, super similar to Bancroft's Talon's old passive. Bancroft's Talon's old passive is you gain 1% of magical power for every 1% of your missing health. That was its old passive. Now it's going to be updated to you get 100 power from the item's passive will be gained at 25% health. So we're going to see a lot of the non-escape mages start using this. But this has always been an anti-mage item. Honestly, in my preference, I normally go Runic Shield. It's a lot better control against something like a lot of the high damage mages like Kronos. The things I'm truly scared of, Kronos and Freya, it's a huge issue. Other than that, Ansal has just been kind of that item that makes you turn on it. One of those mages that aggresses too hard, starts going in too deep, wanting to kill you, and they start dealing too much damage, and they take damage in return. This is not a Guardian item. A lot of people have said otherwise, but this is not a Guardian item. Bellona is a huge benefitter from this item because her health is often very low, and she ends up being caught out of position like this, but that's her job. So she benefits from this item incredibly well. And it's one of those items that, okay, this mage is, you know, it's like an Anubis. Anubis is getting ready to turn on me. He slowed me. He has me mummified. He just ulted me, but I'm okay. He wants to follow up. He has no escape. He has no one to help him. I can just turn on him. That's what this item is for. Now, the new passive, just scroll back up, is that whenever you take magical damage from an ability, you unleash a shockwave that silences all enemies within a range of 20 units for 1 second. This effect cannot trigger more than once every 60 seconds. If that passive sounds very familiar, it should. That passive is Mantle of Discord. If you take damage below 30%, wait, what is it? Whenever you take magical damage on Ansal, while this is below 30%, you unleash a shockwave that stuns all enemies within 20 units for 1 second. Same passive as Ansal. But you do not gain CC immunity for 1 second from Ansal. And Mantle of Discord triggers every 90 seconds, Ansal's triggers every 60 seconds. So it's very much a nerfed down version of Mantle of Discord. And Mantle of Discord is 3100 gold, Ansal is 2200 gold. So effectively for almost half the price, you get half the passive, but still just as good. If you can't build into the Mantle of Discord tree, that's when you start building into it. If you look at the prices, the tier 1 is 700 gold, so is Ansal. The tier 2 is 1515, while Ansal's 1400, and then the Mantle of Discord is 3100, and Ansal's 2200. So it's very much one of those items that you can start into Mantle of Discord, but if you can't finish it because it's such a huge luxury item, you instead sell it and go Ansal. You don't lose too much gold. You can still build into the tier 2 if at all needed. So that's just kind of one of those last resorts if I cannot finish it, because you don't benefit from the stats. The stats do not carry over. You still have Ansal stats as far as I have seen. Whether those may be played with or not, that's just up for debate. But for right now, as far as I'm concerned, Ansal stats are the same. They have not been changed. Let me just double check that. Oh no, the magical protection has been increased to 60. Still doesn't give the overall stats that Mantle of Discord has. The very strong protections that it gives, the very strong stats overall that it gives, the encompass that it can give you. Ansal is basically the cheaper version that is a last resort. You cannot finish Mantle of Discord. That is the only difference. Other than that, I don't see a lot of warriors changing. Brawler's Beatstick might become a little bit less common, and it's already an incredibly rare item because it's just simpler and easier to build into Pestilence. But that is a subject for debate. It just matters, or it's just going to depend on how things turn out once PTS is over and the patch goes live. Other than that, the only difference I can see is possibly Emperor's Armor and possibly the usage of Ansal. Other than that, I don't see a lot of differences. Mages. Mages are going to be fun this patch, in case you haven't noticed, and I am going to enjoy it a lot. A lot of the non-escape mages are going to be coming back. The really good mages like Anubis are definitely going to be seeing a comeback, mostly because of the return, mostly because of Phantom. Phantom is going to be incredibly helpful for these non-escape mages, and the fact that we brought back Bancrofts. As I talked about before, oh wait, this guy is not a mage. As I talked about with Bancrofts before, Bancroft gives 1 additional magical power per 1% of missing health. So you gain 100 power when you're dead. That was the issue they brought up. But now you gain 100 power when you're at 25% health. That is incredibly good. And if you combine that with an Obsidian Shard or Rata Tahuti, that can be incredibly strong. Now, from the passive, the way it's written, I have to assume that if you get the lifesteal from Bancroft's and you go over 25%, you lose that power. So you do have to play it smart and play it risky a little bit and calculate out how much health you can spare to try and do this. That health is that power can be incredibly helpful, but if you do in fact lose it when you go over 25 because of the lifesteal, that will be a problem. You think you can kill this guy, and you just happen to be a god with no escape, and your 100 power is up. Nice knowing you, my friend. So, Bancroft's, it's definitely good that it's seeing some love. We're going to see a lot of advancements from this item. A lot of the non-escape mages are going to be using this a lot more. Maybe the mages that have like 1 escape, so even Agni could benefit from this if he really wanted to. But in my opinion, already Bancroft's on Agni is a little bit almost sacrilege. And some have mentioned that Ao Kuang could benefit from Bancroft's Talon. I would have to say otherwise, because he can benefit from it very well, but he also benefits incredibly strong from Polynomicon, because he has the dragon boosts that also turn into basic attacks, and he can use those and get a Polynomicon proc. And he can pretty much backdoor any tower that he pleases with a Polynomicon proc, because he has abilities to waste pretty much. Bancroft's on him is going to be an incredibly interesting turnout, as well as some of the other more assassin-like mages, even though Ao Kuang's the really true one. A lot of the non-escape ones are going to be interesting. We're just going to have to see how it plays out. I'm going to crunch some more money, crunch some more numbers over this next week and see how it turns out. But in my estimations, Bancroft's Talon is already very good, and now it just got even better. It's just going to change a lot of the gods for right now. As for that, mages, I don't see a lot of difference. You're still going to be doing your probably Vampiric Shard or Soulstone, depending on what you go. Power Pot if you want to do it. Your boots, depending on your situation. It's just, I'm the weird one, and I go Soul Reaver into either Bancroft's Talon or Polynomicon, into Obsidian Shard, into Rata Tahuti, you know. I rarely go into Book of Thoth, and that's probably on my bad, but it's because I like to be able to do a lot more damage. The Soul Reaver procs are definitely nice. Soul Reaver is still incredibly strong the way it is now, so it's not that it's fallen off and you have to go Book. It's just one of those items that you can do either way with. You can benefit... Excuse me. You can benefit from them no matter which one you pick up. Now, wow, everyone is coming online. What is going on? Other than that, there's not going to be a lot of changes with the mages. As far as I know, there's no new items that affect the mages. Nope, actually. Nope, that's it. The mages are relatively unaffected other than Bancroft's Talon. That can change around the tiers a lot more. So we've done the Hunters, we've done the Soulings, we've done the Mids. Now we've come to the Guardians. Guardians are going to be a lot of fun. I know Guardians are mages, but, you know. Now, I'm going to be talking from the standpoint of mage Guardians. Mages, magical damage mages, not Odin support. Or magical damage mages, magical damage supports, not Odin support. Or Bellona support, which is so sad. So, which brings me back to the Warriors. I know that was a while ago, but I just remembered it. I don't care who says it. Chinsai's first item on Amaterasu is not a good pickup. It's... I've seen people in TG do it. It's sad. And we've tested it out. It works in so rare circumstances that the situations that it is good was a fluke. That's all I can consider it. So, as far as I'm concerned, picking Chinsai's up on any warrior, actually, but for any means, is already a bad pickup. But this is coming from a pure analytical standpoint, and I am very much from the meta. When it comes to picking up chin size on any warriors, it's sad. If you're like an Uller, go right ahead. Maybe not like first item, but definitely pick it up at some point. You can definitely mow down the other warrior once they get their Hide of the Urchin and Bulwark online. But first item on an Amaterasu or other similar warriors, no thanks. As I said, the few circumstances that I could have said it worked was a fluke. I mean, it was just one of those situations. It's kind of like on tier list here. So let's say, for example, that Athena can counter a Bacchus. Technically, on paper, that's kind of how it works. Even though they're kind of more on the same level, it's just more in the late game. Athena has a little bit more awareness and more control than Bacchus, while Bacchus has more objective secure. But there are situations where that can turn around. Or, say, for example, Raven is right now on this list the top tier. The next warrior or solo laner he can fight is 2 tiers down. That's how much of a bully he is. However, that doesn't mean that, that's always the case. Some things can happen. Same thing why I put Vamana and Chak in the same tier. Both of them are on the same level. Both of them can cancel each other. They're both similar type of warriors, but it's just more situational and down to player skill. Or like how Aphrodite is not supposed to cancel a tier. But I have seen tier canceled by an Aphrodite so much. It is embarrassing. And that's why I ranked her where she is. And I don't think she's going to change much, in all honesty. But my point is that overall, getting things like that is so situational. And Guardians are not going to see much difference. They're still going to be the same way they have been for quite some time. The only difference is that possibly the addition of Ritual Dagger and Emperor's Armor, we're going to see how that one turns out. As I said, Emperor's Armor can be a Hide of the Urchin replacement, or it can be a Breastplate of Valor replacement for Guardians, or Ritual Dagger can also be a viable replacement for them, or a replacement for Winged Blade. We just have to... I'm going to have to seriously crunch some more numbers to figure out what's going on with those items, but as of right now, Guardians are not going to change much. They're still going to be very health-oriented instead of protection-oriented, especially with so many protection shred items and gods and relics, that health is pretty much the way to go for right now. So Guardians are not going to see much of a change. Last one left is the jungle. The jungle is going to drastically change now, especially in the tier list, with a lot of these boxing setup, hyper farming gods taken out of the meta because of Golden Bow being taken out of the game. So a lot of, I want to say like a lot of Jingwei, because Jingwei benefits from it. Apollo kind of, but Apollo is an interesting god in of himself. He's actually one of those gods that you could just go Devourer's Gauntlet because he gets the passive attack speed. Like, there's no point really to build it unless you really, really, really wanted to. But with junglers, it's going to be interesting. I keep leaning back to we're going to see a lot of tankier junglers, but I also said that at the beginning of the season, actually no, like quarter way into the season, when there were a couple of changes that came out, that we were going to see a lot of the tankier junglers come back. However, that is not the case. In fact, shredders became more common, and that's due to the fact that there was a shredder in the dual lane. So now we're going to see less of the shredders. We might see more of the tankier junglers. The last time I'm going to say it, because I have a feeling now that I said it, I'm going to be wrong. If I didn't say it, I probably would have been right, but we'll just see what happens from there. Other than that, the junglers are not going to change all that much. Bakasor is definitely out for right now because he is a shredder, but I do estimate that we're probably going to see a lot of different tanks start coming back into the meta. But as I said this once before, and I was so horribly wrong. I was so wrong. Let's just say I was so wrong that a little bit after I was thinking about it, that I think we're going to see a lot more junglers. I saw a Kali fountain dive pentakill in the SPL. That's how wrong I am. That is how honestly wrong I am right now. So I'm going to have to learn to eat my words. So other than that, the main changes we're going to see is in the hunters. But they're still going to do okay, especially with the removal of Golden Bow, because as Hyra Scott pointed out before, hunters are not going to fall off because they did fine without Golden Bow in the past for almost 2 or 3 years, counting open beta. Warriors are going to change just a little bit in their priorities, and there's a lot more change to figure out, mostly for the late game, but early game is going to be the same. Jungle, I feel, is going to change to the more tankier junglers, and mages are mostly going to be, we're going to see some of those non-escape mages back. There are still going to be some of the escapey ones, but a lot of the non-escape ones are definitely going to be coming back right now. A lot of the hyper damage like Opwash and Anubis. Who else is a good one? Kukulkan does not count. I don't know why I clicked him. Zeus definitely could be coming back. He's already back, but he could be even stronger than he was before. Zhang Kui is always a good pickup. Who else is really good? I'm just going to pull up the mages. Let's see. Escape, no escape, no escape. Not a mage. Aphrodite, not a mid laner, not a mage. Chang'e, we'll see. I don't know if she'll go back into the mid lane. She's not a good solo lane, so she's going to start being one of those lower tier Conquest gods. And keep in mind, I'm speaking strictly from Conquest. I don't know anything else about the other game modes. Kronos, Freya could be coming back, but that's probably going to be a lot of Freya ADC. Hades, now that Thorns is here, we're going to see him. Hebois, I don't really know. We could. Hell, probably not in the mid lane. Nox, Nuwa, we could see a little bit of Poseidon. If we see Poseidon come back more often than he has, I would love to see a lot more Poseidon. I love me some Poseidon, man. Ra, I love me my Ra. I love me any type of Ra I can get. If I can get a Ra, I am happy. Ra was one of my first favored mages next to Kronos. So if we can get a Ra, hands down, best thing ever. Raijin's always been good. Scylla is going to see a little bit of change, but I don't think too much of change. Sol, only truly in the mid lane. In the dual lane, possibly. I don't know. Definitely not the solo lane anymore. Most certainly not the solo lane. She just can't sustain herself enough. But in the dual lane, in the mid lane, we'll see a little bit more of. Vulcan, definitely going to see him come back stronger than ever. So that's a little bit it on my generic math and kind of some basis of theory crafting. I'll go into more detail later on, and I'm going to introduce more of my thought processes. For now, I'm going to take just a very short break, just like a 5-minute break. We're going to get something to drink and get some time to let this all process, and I'm going to prepare for the next part of the lesson, which is going to be over the tier list. We're going to be talking about the new 312 tier list and what we're going to be seeing based off the changes we have already seen so far. So, if there's any questions, be sure to leave them in chat. When I come back, we'll definitely get to it whenever we can, or whenever I can. But other than that, feel free to discuss about it with yourselves, and we'll just see what happens. And as I said, when I come back, we're going to go back over that tier list. We're going to get that arranged, get that published, and we're going to call it a day. So we're almost done. We got another hour and 4 minutes, so I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll be heading back into this. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that little bit of a break. We're going to go ahead and get through the next hour as quickly as possible because I don't want to keep you guys here too long. So, we went over a very brief summary of the 312 changes, and we went over some of the things we're going to be seeing over the next week or two as the meta starts to shift away from the golden bow meta and a lot of the different gods we're going to be seeing / not seeing, as well as some of the different build changes we're going to go. So for now, we're going to get to the fun part of it, which I know everyone is excited for. We are going to get to the tier list because, you know, everyone is excited to get through the tier list. I'm excited just to get it over with because it allows everyone to basically get a clear idea of what is going to be happening and what their matchups are going to be. So, let's get the show on the road. So, wrong button, bro. So, this is not a tier list ranking gods of how they're used or how they're not used, and this only applies to Conquest. Ranked Conquest, sure. Normal Conquest, go right ahead. Outside of Conquest, I know nothing. I am a mathematician. Please, microphone. I am a mathematician of Conquest. I am not a mathematician of Duel. I am actually a Bronze 1 dueler right now. Then started off Bronze 5. Just no. Just don't look to me when it comes to anything outside of Conquest. I'm a Conquest master, or not actually ranked masters, but I am a mathematician and have the understanding of one. So, these gods are going to be ranked based off of who can counterpick who is a countermatch to them. So, for example, I recently said that Aphrodite can cancel, Aphrodite can cancel a tier, and very hard, might I add. Now, I'd rate them here, but it also depends on, okay, who else can who beats Aphrodite? Well, Kronos could. Kronos easily could if he really wanted to, but that's also if he really wanted to. So he'd be put right there, but who can beat a Kronos? Well, a lot of people can beat a Kronos, but a Soul tends to have that ability to do it better. Now, you know, Soul counters Aphrodite, Kronos, and Tyr, and she actually does do that. That's how we're doing this. It's a much easier way, and it creates a very nice list of gods that you can be like, okay, here's the god I'm facing, who's a good countermatch, you know. So, I like to start. This is going to be interesting because here is my last list, and it was very much incomplete, very much rushed. So we're going to see how this is going to eventually evolve into the meta. So this is going to be a prediction, and then it's going to grow into an actual list next Saturday where I'm going to make the final one. So we're going to kind of base this off the old one. So Raven, I still feel, is a very strong lane bully. As of now, I don't know if I should place him that high, but we're going to just go ahead and start him off as S, because he can still be that very dominant lane bully, but he's not overly strong. There are people that can counter him, and I could probably drop him down like one more grade at least. Apollo has definitely dropped down a little bit because of the lack of golden bow, but not too far down. In all honesty, where can I find Apollo? He'd be the grade directly below Raven. Not comparing them to the hunters. Team comp wise, Raven can get the better hand of Apollo with his amount of CC and the amount of burst he can shoot him down with. But we'll just see. They are both boxers. Literally, one of them is a boxer. So we'll just see how that results. So Artemis has definitely dropped. I'm going to put her down into the A- because I don't know where she's comfortable with just yet. I'll eventually move her back later. Jingwei, I feel, is on the same level as Artemis, so I'm going to put them into the same tier. Because with those two, it's very much situational. It's just a matter of Jingwei has an escape while Artemis doesn't. That's really the only difference between the two. They both have passive crit. Both of them have passive attack speed steroids and movement speed steroids. So they're both on the same level. It's just a matter that Jingwei has a lot more lane sustain because of her passive, and she has an escape. 2 escapes, actually. So if you count her knockup as an escape, because keep in mind, you are damage immune when you are knocked up. So I'm just going to put them into the same tier because it's very much situational. And we have Amazenkap. Amazenkap is still very strong, even lacking the golden bow. Whether or not he's still high up there, I'm actually just going to put him there for the time being, and then we'll see how he develops once we flesh out the list a little bit more. Ao Kuang, is he on the same level of a Apollo? Not necessarily. Yeah, I don't want to say so because Apollo can escape an Ao Kuang, but there are situations where they can be equal, so I'm just going to put him there for now. Soul, She could definitely be S. I'll probably move her again later. I keep saying that. Shibalanke is definitely, where is he? Let's see. Definitely on the same level of an Apollo. I probably shouldn't say that, but it's just the fact that Apollo gets a passive attack speed boost, Shibalanke gets a passive power boost. And Apollo's going to go power, Shibalanke will likely go lifesteals or attack speed. So very much a counter between the two in the early game. They can definitely outlane one or the other. It's not a definite win over each other. So I feel those two should definitely be in the same tier. Rom, I feel, has dropped below. He's not a boxer, but he's not a hyper farmer. He's relatively balanced, so I'm just going to put him down to the A. And I could drop him lower, but Zapman plays Smite, doesn't he? So Rom's still good. Khepri is interesting. Now without the golden bow, but with the introduction of Devourers back into the meta as a first item, from my predictions, Khepri can still very much be incredibly strong. I think I feel good with that choice. Yeah, because he can definitely help out the farming situation of Apollo and Shibalanke in those lanes. So that much hasn't changed. Athena. Athena is interesting. Now comes the question of, does Ravan, Amazenka, or Sol counter an Athena? Not necessarily. They're not counters, but they're not on the same level. Now, do they counter Apollo, Alquang, Xbalanque, and Khepri? On the other hand, maybe. I'm going to put her there, in them, and see what happens. And the goal is to try and get every one of them ranked. Cupid, yeah, no. Well, that's interesting because Cupid can easily counter Xbalanque. But Cupid can also counter an Apollo if he really wanted to. But that's if he really wanted to. So I feel comfortable. I shouldn't feel comfortable doing this, but I feel comfortable doing it, honestly. Now, that just means I actually kind of want to move Athena down one, just to be sure, because yeah, that amount of team comp can counter an Athena, but she can counter a Rom, so that's definitely for sure. On her. Now, with Golden Bill gone, On her can come in and do things. He is not an Apollo counter, he's not a Cupid counter, but he can definitely come in and do things. He can do stuffs and things. Alright, Arylos. I don't necessarily know for sure. I'm going to unrank her for now. Until I know where the rest of the knockup gods are going to be laid out, because that's where she mostly shines. Thor. What about you, Thor, baby? What are we going to be doing with you? Thor, where are you? There you are. So Thor is definitely an interesting matchup. Actually, I think I feel comfortable with this, especially with Khepri in that lineup as well. Khepri and Thor is normally a very good matchup. It's not one or the other. It's usually a relatively balanced matchup. But he can definitely counter an Athena, Xbalanque, and Anher, as well as everyone below. He definitely has the amount of control, definitely has the poke damage to annoy those other gods. And that is my dog running around on hard floors. Vamana. I still feel that this is going to be interesting because Vamana is definitely in a weird placement right now, but not too much so. Depending on what warrior start to do, because he's going to be the first warrior in this lineup. I do know this. I do know Vamana should be there, and if Vamana is there, Chang'e is placed lower. I do know that for darn sure. And if Vamana is there, Chak is there too. Especially with the introduction of Runeforged Hammer. Both of them benefit from that greatly. They have not changed tiers at all. They are technically still on the same tier, because both of them have a great amount of slow and very intense slows, of which, oh my gosh, Runeforged Hammer. If you don't know Runeforged Hammer's passive, Runeforged Hammer's new passive, enemies who are within 20 units of you and are slowed take 10% more damage from all sources. This can be incredibly potent, especially with the Armored Umbrella of Vamana and Chak's Hammer. Those can hurt a lot, and not even in team fights, just in 1v1 scenarios. So those two definitely benefit from it greatly against each other. Probably not going to be much different. I haven't really done the math between those two, but just from feeling, I have a feeling those two still haven't changed tiers just yet. Sun Wukong, if I remember correctly, Master's Will does slow, so he could be in the same tier, and they are both hyperlane clears. And Sun Wukong, his clear cannot be beat. Very rarely can you ever out-clear Sun Wukong. Ratatoskr, as I said, his solo lane potential doesn't no longer exist, but it's not as intense as it was when Divios first tried it. And it was still intense after he got nerfed, but not too much intense. He's definitely going to be on the lower tier of all these hyper clear and control earth-based gods. Osiris. Osiris definitely has not changed. I'm just going to say that he is a hyper boxer. Look at this team comp. We have a boxer, we have an initiative boxer, a boxer, a boxer, a boxer, a boxer, and a boxer. This is where the boxers go pretty much. Especially with this amount, with the slow and the amount of CC he can deal out. Osiris really, don't spit everywhere. Osiris really hasn't changed much tier wise. And it'll still kind of depend on how much he plays out. Bellona. Bellona is a boxer, but not a boxer. She's definitely an interesting level. However, she doesn't have the amount of hyper clear potential as these gods above, and she doesn't benefit too much from Runeforge. Sort of, but not entirely. So she's going to be just below them, just a grade below them. Just for right now. And that's kind of whether or not do these gods. I'm so sorry. Day is not even over yet. Come on, wake up. Ram can definitely outbeat an Artemis. Chang'e, that's interesting. I'm going to see how that plays out in a little bit. Hou Yi. Hou Yi is another boxing god with a lot of control. But he is better than Ram and better than Artemis and Jing Wei. Definitely a good counter to them. So he hasn't changed much. Fafnir. Fafnir with his dragon form I feel is a little bit stronger. Yes, this blank one is Fafnir. If you actually look at the positioning, Fenrir, Fafnir. I don't know exactly where I want to place him. I'll place him when I put more Guardians in line. And then Serket. As I said, this is just from opinion. I feel that the Shredders are no longer going to be truly part of the meta. And more of these boxers can shut down a Serket, especially with the amount of CC that they deal. And if that's the case, then that means Kali is down here too. Down in the lower grade. Alright, now for the A pluses, which are most of the A's, Opwash is one of those guys I talked about that can be moved up with the buff to Bancroft's Talon. Again, I'm going to be watching them more closely, so we'll see how they turn out. Amaterasu is below them because she doesn't have the amount of early hyper clear and poke that these guys have, but she does have the sustain. But she also doesn't have a slow. So she has a silence, and she has a stun and slow in her ultimate, I think. But could benefit from Runeforge, but definitely not as much as these guys. Anubis, Goobus definitely has moved up. Aphrodite, didn't we just place Aphrodite? I'm pretty sure I did. I did not? Okay, wow. Aphrodite, she's not on the A plus tier. A, sort of, where they're generically balanced but not overly balanced, and that means tier is below her down here. Yeah, okay. And then Bacchus. Bacchus, I don't think he's changed much, so we'll just put him in the A plus tier for right now. He still functions, you know, Bacchus still does Bacchus things. Uller. Don't really know about an Uller. I feel Uller should be down here because of the fact that he's better than the boxers, kind of, but not over. No, I don't want to say that either because Artemis and Jing Wei can counter him. Mostly Artemis because Jing Wei has an escape, but Uller can definitely take on an Artemis. Jing Wei is definitely interesting. I kind of want to move her up now, but I don't want to because she can't really be on the same level as these gods. And she can't be up here because she's not a hyper-clearing boxer. And these are kind of the generic boxers. Okay. Just for sanity's sake, I'm going to move them onto the same level. Works out a little bit nicer. Uller and Jingwei, that's a relatively even matchup. And both of them can take on an Artemis if needed. So, let's see, what else do we have? Xing Chen. As I said, Xing Chen is one of those guardians that are just easier because he has that dot damage clear. He can tenderize the minions, make life easier for the hyper clears, or for these guys down here, make life easier for like a Shibalanke or an Anhurin lane, just make life totally easier for them. So yeah, I definitely think that he's on the same tier. Scotty, she's just like the others, where she benefited a little bit from Golden Bow, but not too much to be truly affected by it. I honestly feel that the Transcendence start for her was much better either way. So, but she is a boxer, and she can be a very hyper-clearing boxer at when the time comes. So yeah, I think she'll do well in the A+ tier. And Mercury is still good, but One Punch Mercury is no longer a thing, which is why I placed him in this lineup. But with this lineup the way it is now, I honestly think this. Yeah, I honestly don't think I should move him out just yet. So we'll just see how that turns out. And it's just a matter of what happens with Mercury. What are we going to do with him? Susanoo and Thor are definitely much on the same level, so I want to put him there. However, now Susanoo can counter a Mercury. Now he can. Thor, kind of, but still can somewhat. Ao Kuang definitely can, so I generally feel good about that lineup right there. Thanatos. Is Thanatos on the same level of a Susanoo and the same level of a Thor? If we're going to be tanky, and this is a tanky Thanatos, I will say yes. But if it's not a tanky Thanatos, and that's still to be determined from the meta, then no, he would be down here. Or below, honestly. But if this is a tanky Thanatos, which is generically what you do, then yes. But I have been seeing a lot of full penetration Thanatoses with no tank items whatsoever. So take this with a grain of salt. Take the Thanatos placement with a grain of salt, in all honesty. What else do we have? We have Thanatos. Raijin. Is Raijin on the level of these gods? Of gods like Apwash and Anubis, is he on that level? Part of me wants to say yes, and part of me wants to say no, but I'm just going to say yes, because Raijin can use his escape as an initiate, and he does deal the damage. He's very much a glass cannon, much like these other much like Apwash and Anubis, and can benefit from the Bancroft's Talon passive, especially with his mesmerizing escape. So I would say yes. Nemesis. Again, she's one of the shredding gods, but this is still subject to change. I think she's still on the same tier because of her ability to shred the protections. However, a lot of gods in this tier do not use protections. So I'm willing to bet that she... no, wait, no. Chucks. Some of them do. Some of them do. Can definitely easily be shredded. Anubis can easily be killed by a Nemesis. Yeah, I think she should be moved up because of her ability to... It's kind of like these guys. Thor, Thanatos, and Susanoo are kind of... Well, Thor and Susanoo are not designed to 100 to 0 you. Thanatos and Nemesis are with a little bit of setup. So, you know, they could be on the same tier. Medusa. Without Golden Bow, she didn't really take too much of a hit to her. She's still all around generically balanced. However, she is not a boxer. I hate to say this. She just isn't a serious boxer. She is not a Shibalanke. She is not an on her. She doesn't have that much boxing potential. Kronos. If we're talking Kronos mid, then yes. If we're talking Kronos ADC, then no. So I don't want to put a Kronos on the same level like a Rom or something like that. So because he does have enough burst to take down a Rom and a Uller and a Jingwei and a Medusa if you wanted to. Definitely can, because Kronos can easily go to 700 power, not counting his passive. So that's going to be an interesting matchup to see. Definitely want to keep an eye on it. So I got to play me some Kronos. I haven't done that for a while. Neith. She can go into any of these tiers. Neith is a hybrid god. She can either box or she can either be an ability-based god. She's got a lot of CC. She's got a lot of boxing potential. I think she should go in with like the CC boxers. I mean, we're talking about on her. You can pin you up against a wall and get like three crits on you if you don't have beads. You know, she can definitely do that. Odin, with his passive, if it wasn't for his new passive, I would say he gets moved down. But he can be very aggressive. He can be very CC based, and he's very much a boxer, ability based boxer. Definitely goes in with these pretty much bullies. Hunbots is still very good because of his team fight potential, but because of the fact that he's not a true boxer until mid to late game, and that's if you go some type of crit on him, I gotta put him a little bit below that. That puts him on the same level with Ratatoskr, which I don't like, and a Serket, but they are kind of the same thing. Same thing with the Hunbots. Hunbots can easily be soloed out with enough CC. So I gotta put him on the same level there. Alright, now for below them, we have the tier. I have the tier already placed. Sobek. I put Sobek down here because he could be countered relatively easily. And last time I saw Sobek, it was just one guy. It was just a guy just pressing 1, 2, 3, doing Sobek. But there's a lot more to Sobek than just pressing 1, 2, or 3. So I want to give this to here because he's definitely not bad, but he's definitely not good. He's kind of in the mid-range, and, you know, I'm not F-Dot. I don't love Sobek for I'm not Sobek, you know. I love Sobek and everything, man. Love Sobek for days, but I'm not F-Dot. If I was F-Dot, then he'd probably be, like, all the way up here in SS, but no bashing to F-Dot. But I just think that Sobek needs a little bit more love before I place him any higher. He definitely is good when lined up with a lot of the CCing type hunters and some of the boxers as well. Okay, you know what? Just for this once, I'm going to move him up because if you've ever been Sobek plucked into an on her impale, you do not know how hard life can be until you've been Sobek plucked into an on her impale. I rest my case. I rest my case. That's about the highest I will ever move him. Scylla is... I think I just talked about this. Scylla is in a very interesting placement right now. Turn to me. Scylla is in a very interesting placement right now. She is not on the level of she's a hyper carry, but not a hyper clear. Unless you like really take advantage of her crush and you level skip with her. But she is very CC based, but she isn't. She isn't on the level of an Anubis, but she doesn't go any higher than that because she's not on the level of these gods. So I'm just going to put her in the same tier because it can be very much situational. Very much situational. And we have Poseidon. Poseidon definitely still on the same tier as Anubis and all these other gods. High amount of CC, high amount of burst damage, high amount of team fight and control, but he doesn't really get to be moved up or down. Really, I don't see a reason to do that. Naja, I moved down here because he, you did have to like play really smart with his CC, but now you have to play even smarter with his passive, and Naja can easily be burned down by a lot of CC, so he's going into the below tier, below all these CC boxers. Bakasura, definitely, actually, I almost want to say below that. Bakasura is great, but he's just not fabulous. Yeah, because there's still a lot of boxing in CC, and Bologna ult can counter a Bakasura ult. If you don't know, Bakasura slows, deals extra damage, but if you can drop down that extra 35 protections from the Bologna ultimate, the ultimate's pretty much like getting basic attacks without Butcher Blades, in a way. And if I remember correctly, you can use Butcher Blades on Bakasura ult, but don't quote me on that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. The only thing better is his backdoor protections. Like he can remove backdoor protections, but also so can Bastet. So it's an interesting lineup. It's a very interesting lineup. I still think Bastet wins over him though. And you see here I put them in the same tier. Well, we're going Chiron. Chiron's good, but he's not fabulous. He's kind of eh. And then Bastet. Bastet's a force to be reckoned with, so. But she's not on that level. She doesn't have a too high amount of CC, so she goes down below. Alright. And Kumbhakarna. Kumbhakarna I actually feel has moved up a little bit, especially with the high amount of CC he has against these gods without escapes. So if he were to fight these gods, it'd definitely be an interesting matchup. Not a complete domination, but not a complete, not a complete loss. It's a relatively even matchup, especially against something like an Athena. Oh man. I would normally be asleep right now. We're almost done. We are literally halfway done. If I remember, what was it 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 26. So we are just over halfway done. Whew. Hang it in, man. Hang on in there. We're sending help. Be a trooper. Guan Yu. Guan Yu. Guan Yu is love. Guan Yu is life. I feel his utility has actually gone up. So, is he on that level? Yeah, actually, I think he's doing incredibly well. The amount of utility and the amount of control he gets from his new passive, definitely a force to be reckoned with. We'll just see how it turns out. But he can definitely counter some of these others down below. However, that does mean Hades goes up here. And look at that. High amount of CC, high amount of clear. CC, high control. He's also got an escape. These guys over here. So he's definitely not a great matchup to them. But he kind of wins out, especially with the reintroduction of Thorns. Where'd I leave off? Guan Yu, Chang'e. Already placed Chang'e. Cabrakan. CC, control, damage. Goes down with the boxers. He's not my personal favorite Guardian, but he's definitely a really good Guardian right now. Isis. Isis, I think, has moved down a little bit. She's potent, but not too potent. She's overall very well balanced, especially with all these. Yeah, she has an escape, but these guys can do a lot more damage. She wins out because of her objective secure, but she's not high enough to be placed up with the Bacchus. Where did I put a Bacchus, actually? I put Bacchus right here. Yeah, she's not... She doesn't have enough CC to be able to take care of it. Even her silence, a lot of people don't really notice her silence. It's not a preemptive measure. It's more of a counteractive measure. And even then, So, Loki. How do I feel about Loki? Just because I hate Loki. Loki does not have a lot of high CC, and he is a pick-off artist. A lot of these can be used as pick-offs, and they don't have a high form of CC, and when CC'd, he gets killed. So he can't be around any of the high CC gods. So he definitely goes in the grade below them. Nuwa. Definitely out of the meta right now. Actually, below that. She is definitely out of the meta. She is good, but she's not great. There's a lot of counters to her. She's overall okay, but there's just so much more you could do with her. Nox, good but not great. Other options to go, and she can be pinned down. Actually, no, let's move her up because she does have a high amount of CC, high amount of setup, and you know she can focus out at Naja, but Naja also works well with her on the same team. So it's a very interesting matchup. I'm just going to put her above that because she still does have a high amount of CC. And a major escape. Even though a lot of these gods don't have like major escapes, she's the only one that could deal that amount of damage and be gone. You know, she'll be gone faster than you say Fafa Nugan, if you know what I mean. Hebois, good amount of CC, high amount of damage, definitely a good boxing type god right now. Solo lane, people are talking about solo lane Hebois all the time. I personally don't see the joys of it, but I'm also not a Hebois player personally. Hell is very much balanced, but she's not overly balanced. She's definitely the mid to late game kind of god, and mostly a solo lane type god, but she doesn't have the CC nor the poke of all of these other CC and poking solo lane gods, so she goes in the tier below them. Who's next? Hercules. Hercules? Really? Wow. 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 Okay. Applause to me. Wow. Okay. I don't even have that copied anymore. Wow. Wow. Look what I'm going to be doing. I am going to be having some fun. Pulling up that stream and finding out my list because I am not sorting through that list again. Because screw that noise, I am not down with that sickness. Just none of that. I know I'm still streaming this Twitch. Thank you for letting me know. But you see, I need something from just a couple of minutes ago, so if you'll work with me. All right. So we have the... Where is he? We have the bully. The other bully. Oops, wrong list. Uh-huh. Okay, so we have that bully, we have this bully, and we have this bully. And then we have... Where'd I put Apollo? There's Apollo. Apollo, Quanger Banger, Capri. Where's Capri at? Capri, baby. Capri. There you are. Cupid. There you are. Thor. And Susanoo goes up there too. And Thanatos. And Thor. And Xingqian. And Hades and Nemesis. There we go. Hades. Nemesis. Voila. And now we put in... If we put in here... I screwed that up. This is why we can't have nice things, because Arylos keeps screwing things up with his shows. Just... wow. There we go. Okay, so we have a Shibalanke on her. Where's Athena? Athena. Vamana. Chuck. Sun Wukong. Osiris and Hou-Yi. Hou-Yi. Anubis. Sorry about this, guys, by the way. It's just... I got stupid. I must have clicked something I shouldn't have clicked on. Wait, someone's missing. Osiris and Wukong. Pwash needs to be in here too. And then we have a Scotty. Then we have a Mercury. Where's Mercury? There you are, Mercury. We have a Raijin. A Kronos. A Neef. An Odin. A Sobek, if that would be proud. A Scylla. A Poseidon. A Kumbhakarna. Cabrakan. Where's Cabroken at? Cabroken, that means Guan Yu's in here too, right? Yeah, and Nux. That leaves Ram. Chang'e. Chang'e at, baby. Ratatoskr. Bellona. Aphrodite. Amaterasu. Serket. Uller. Jingwei. Medusa Naja. And Hunbat Kronos Chiron. Hunbat Chiron. Bastet. Isis. And Loki. And that means the greats Artemis. Who else? Kali. Tyr, Bakasura, Nuwa. Nuwa, Tyr, Bakasura. Aha, voila. I am on track. I am on all of the tracks now. Every single track is mine. You know how much tracks? All of the tracks. So who do I agree on? Hell went down here, right? Yeah, actually that makes sense. Habwa goes down here. All right, I am officially caught up. So, I don't know what I did. I guess I pressed the back button right over there. So, Hercules, high amount of CC, not really a hyper clear, but definitely a good amount of CC that could be dug out from him. Giannis definitely goes in there. Geb, I feel, has not fallen off, but he does have a good amount of CC and is a great tank. Kukulkan, yes. Zeus, yes. Ymir, yes. Zhonghui goes down. No, actually, with Bancroft, he goes up. Fenrir, if he's a tanky, yes. The Freya ADC won't go higher than this, but a normal Freya, definitely down in here because she can be counted so easily. Ra definitely goes there. Sylvanas made a jump. With that amount of sustain he has, I personally think he goes up here. Personally, but we shall see. Vulcan definitely goes there. Agni, he doesn't have enough CC, and even Vulcan, actually thinking about Vulcan, doesn't. Arachne definitely goes there. Ares, good amount of CC. Arylos, all the CC for days. And Fafnir, it's interesting because Fafnir hasn't really found his identity yet, but I have a feeling he'll be unranked. No. He counters the boxers because of his disarm. Yes. That's how I think this is going to go. Yeah. I think I like this. Yes. Alright, so I think that's how it's going to be. As I said, next Saturday, this coming Saturday actually, I'm going to be going into more detail about the theory crafting, and we're going to be talking more over about how the meta has changed, because by that point, we will have known. So, this tier list will be up. I'm actually going to put the link to it in chat. You know, if you guys would like to read up on it, just let me copy some stuffs. Not ranked, but it could be used for ranked. And where's the cursor thing? There it is. Get rid of that. And I'm probably going to tweak this a little bit more later on, but we shall see. We're just going to see how this comes out. Here's the link to the tier list. You guys can use that, read over it, give your opinions. You guys can already give me your opinions if you want. We'll just see how this turns out. I'm going to be crunching a lot more numbers this week. Going to be doing a lot more math instead of estimations. Since right now I just have estimations to go off of, but once we get this ball rolling, once the patch goes live, I will be given actual numbers I can work with, and I can do a lot more observations. I can start recording a lot more games, start spectating a lot more games, and we'll just see how things turned out. So, that is it for weekend review. Wow, just with like 12 minutes to spare. Wow. Even with that little issue with the tier list. So I probably could have gone a little bit more detail, but as I said, this is a very much start of weekend review, so I want to kind of let things be eased into it. So I said thank you very much for coming out. We're going to next week. We're going to go more in detail. We're going to do a lot more math. We're going to have a lot more fun about this, and we're going to bring in a lot more Jonathan Young music. As I said, Jonathan Young is the music that is played when the stream is coming on or is going off check him out on YouTube. He makes a lot of cool stuff, and as I said, he might transform into a piece of pizza or beg you for some pizza so he doesn't starve to death. But you know, as of right now, I consider him the official Disney villain of YouTube. So that is officially it. Is there any questions that you guys in chat have for me? I will be taking a couple minutes before the stream ends to answer them. And any opinions you may have, I'll also address to them right now, since I have time. Anyone at all have any questions before the stream ends? Now's your chance to get them in. Alright, if that will be it for you guys, I will be going ahead and signing off. Got some other stuff going to be doing. Going to get some more numbers gathered together, and we're going to have a lot more math being done. So I hope you guys like math, because that's all we're going to be doing next Saturday. So I will see you guys then.